Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to After the Buzzer. I am your host, as always, Couper Moorhead, and we are talking about the Miami Heat's 2024-25 season, the playoffs. We're going to recap everything a little bit, and we're talking about exit interviews. Those have taken place. They're done and over with at the Kaseya Center. And, even as a couple of games, like the last two of the season, games 3 and 4 against Cleveland, those kind of games can hover over you like a dark cloud, but understandably so, the sting, at least, of them wears off after a little bit, and it makes it easier to see things, to see the scope of the season with clear eyes. So as I always like that about exit interviews, no matter how much success you had, no matter how the season ended, everybody gets to sit down and sort of reflect on the totality of everything, and then they get to think about what's coming next for them. That's always the focus of my questions in exit interviews is, what's next? What are you going to be working on? What's development going to look like? And look, for all the moments of success and of hope that they had this season, for all of the resilience they had after the trade and the losing streak, making the playoffs as a first 10 seed, this team is not going to call this a successful year, I don't think. And, you don't have to take my word for that. I'm not going to determine what it will be for them. Here's Erik Spoelstra and what he said about the season and how it ended in his press conference.
Again, we'd have to, evaluate 4 or 5 different segments of the season. What I told the team, and this is not any kind of, moral message or victory. It's just what you want is out of a season is to be able to come together for whatever reason and improve and do something. We were all faced with a very uncomfortable segment of the season. There were some other segments of the season where it was what it was, but during the losing streak where we were playing great, we were making progress and losing games. I said it so often that you want to get a team that felt like it's worthy to win, and we were definitely feeling like we were worthy to win, and we were still losing. And it could have gotten a lot worse, but I think that's when we made our most improvement. It was during that 10 games losing streak. And then we ended up playing our best basketball after that. And then we put ourselves out there. When you put yourselves out there as competitors, you're going to put yourself out there for everything. And we deserve it. We deserve the criticism. We deserve the embarrassment. Those last 2 games, it's not, what our organization's about. But we put ourselves out there to fight in the play-in, 2 road play-in games, to earn our right to go to the playoffs. And those 2 games were something. We felt like it was going to lead to a lot more, and that was irrational on our part. If we handled, different parts of the season better, and that's what I'm going to analyze, even amidst all the adversity and the change and some of the things that were extreme. If we handled some of those better, then I think we would have been out of the plan and a little bit in the middle of the pack, and that's what everything remains to be seen. Nobody has an answer for that right now. There's 2 teams that are playing ahead of others, but we'll find out, if the other teams will or not. At the end of the day, there's going to be 7 other teams, in 6 days that'll all be joining us, right where we are and trying to figure it out. Nobody really has the model. But again, we have huge, massive expectations in this building, so we'll take it. We'll take it. And we'll get to work. I'm extremely motivated, for the offseason once we get away and all that stuff to try to get our organization and basketball team to a higher level. The play-in obviously is not, where we want to be, but there's great parity, there's great competition, and there's a lot of teams that are pretty similar to us trying to figure it out, that are not at that top tier level, and that's what we'll spend the off season, working on.
So as for the season, this was really 3 seasons kind of packed into one, and the coaching staff, the players, everybody came in with the plan for the first of those 3 mini seasons. And the coaching staff, they had aims on changing things around with the offense to boost up the offensive efficiency numbers. But everything else that happened from mid-December and then the trade deadline and everything after that, that was all improv. And obviously there's institutional knowledge that helps you, that keeps everybody on the same page, that keeps the train on the tracks, so to speak, and it helps you make those changes on the fly. But still, there was a plan A, and then everything started to change, and everybody had to just kind of keep up. You can't, if you didn't keep up, you're going to get left behind, and they had to keep changing and adapting so they could keep the season together. And how well they did that, I'll leave that up to you to determine. But still, they made the playoffs. They bounced back after that losing streak, and there were things that held together. Fundamentally, as far as the numbers, it was mostly status quo from the past couple of years. They finished number 9 on defense. There were times when the defense felt a little shaky. It wasn't always working as intended. They were giving up more paint points than usual at times, but you still finish in the top 10 in defensive rating. That's always kind of going to be your floor when you have Bam Adebayo, one of the top 5 defenders in the league, and Eric Spoelstra, one of the best defensive coaches probably of all time. So no matter how many leaks it felt like they were in the defense at time, you're still going to have that certain floor because you've just got great institutional knowledge and talent on the defensive end. On offense, they finished 21st, which is about where they've been the last couple of years. They struggled in the clutch. They played the 5th most clutch games. They played 42 of those, but they only won 14, going 14-28 in clutch games. Obviously, there was the 10-game losing streak, followed immediately by the 6-game winning streak, winning both playing games on the road, getting into the playoffs as the first 10 seed ever to do that. First 2 games against Cleveland, they lost those games for sure, but there were reasons to be encouraged, and we talked about during the season, during that series. Tyler Herro had a great game 2. Everybody adjusted, got him off the ball more. And the shot quality, we talked a lot about shot quality in their series. Cleveland's was coming down ever since the first half of game 1. Though the 6 quarters that followed that, their shot quality was kind of sinking to Miami's level, putting things more or less on Miami's terms of engagement, even though Cleveland had more than enough firepower to win on those terms. There were reasons to feel like the Heat could still be competitive for sure, at the least, coming back to Miami. That was not the case. Cleveland turned things around. They started playing bigger lineups, and the Heat they didn't have any answers, which, frankly, a lot of teams are not going to have answers or would not have had answers against that Cleveland team, which is, as we said before, that's a very serious group. That's a group that is a legit contender. It's not a pretending number 1 seed in any way. All the numbers that came with the final 2 games. We don't need to relive those. But if there is a number that I take away from that series specifically, it comes back to shot quality. And we talked about it throughout, but if you take out the threes, I think both teams generally earned pretty good threes throughout. But the shot quality on 2-pointers only, Cleveland's was 56.5. That's their expected field goal percentage on their 2s. That would have ranked well and above first place during the regular season. Miami's expected field goal percentage on 2-pointers was 49.2, which would rank 30th. That's something I think I'll be thinking about this summer, just as far as where can Miami make gains as a paint scoring team, getting downhill, producing more efficient, easy looks, relief baskets, things like that. So let's go to Tyler first. I think Tyler's had a really, really good season, really encouraging. After that Boston series last year, things clicked into place. He had those conversations with Eric Spoelstra. Shot profile changes, approach changes, going to play off the ball more. He came into the season undoubtedly a different player, a changed player, and it all worked really, really well. First-time All-Star, his efficiency, his true shooting percentage skyrocketed, even though his usage wasn't really all that different. But then, as with the team, the season changed, and what he had planned for, being an off-ball guy, the team now it flipped. They needed him on the ball because they needed ball handling, they needed creation, playmaking, shot creation. They need all that from Tyler. It's hard to do all of that when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. And I think it's really instructive to hear what Tyler had to say about balancing on ball, off ball, and how that changed throughout the year. So here's what he had to say.
I learned a lot, throughout this whole season. Obviously still reflecting on some different moments. But I think going in, obviously coming into the season thinking I was going to be playing a lot off the ball. And that was kind of what I worked on all last summer, just trying to change my game into playing off the ball, being a recipient of other guys' attacks. And I started the season like that, played obviously really well in that role. And then we made a change as things kind of changed. I started to have the ball in my hands a little bit more, and I thought I did pretty well with that. I learned closing games isn't as easy as some people make it look. And that's my improvement this summer is how I can figure out ways to help this team win games at the end of games, whether that's making a play for myself or making a play for a teammate, but ultimately just making the right and the overall best play for the team. And I think that's what I'll be working on this summer. A lot of film, a lot of studying the situations that went wrong this year, so that when we're in those situations next year, we can turn those to wins instead of losses.
I'm going to come away really impressed with Tyler's season, making multiple adjustments, both of the planned kind and on the fly. And he had a real sense of self-awareness through it all. I don't think you can change as much as he did as a player if you don't have a good sense of self, if you don't have, a clear focus and clear areas, looking at your own game, watching your own film, looking at your own numbers. I think that's a lot of that to be commended, but there's also work to be done because, leading an offense, particularly an above-average offense full-time as an A1 guy on every scouting report, that takes a lot. That is a major role. It's one of the toughest things to be in this league, and that's kind of where the current roster, that's what they're going to need from him going forward is, they added some ball handlers, some guys who can give him relief and let him work off the ball, but you're still going to be the lead playmaker, the lead scorer. So where can it go from here? And, fortunately, the trajectory is upward. The trend is up, and we'll see where Tyler can go next year. Bam. One of the things that defined Bam over the years is that he's always found a way somehow to improve, 10%, 15% every single year. He did it this year, even though I think it's kind of gotten forgotten, but he added the three-point shot, right? It's what everybody wanted from him for so long. And then it happened, and it felt like it almost immediately became an afterthought in parts. But he finished at 35.7%, right at league average on 3 attempts per game. That's a major, major development for him. That is basically the best-case scenario for what you could possibly expect of Bam's first season, shooting the three at even, relative medium volume. It's a really big deal. This year started as a bit of a down year coming off the Olympics, and he has earned the right for us to consider those stretches a slump. I never really thought there was anything permanent or serious about his shooting numbers being down, but, there were role adjustments for sure, and then it turns out it was a slump. And he turned all of his numbers around from the upper paint, dotted line, his short jumpers, everything about his efficiency generally rounded out into form. The defense was still there. By the numbers, he was still possibly, if not the best one-on-one defender in the league. He spent a lot of the year covering for the defense, trying to plug holes, trying to prevent leaks. Wasn't always the easiest thing for him. In some cases, like his pick-and-roll numbers, not quite the elite top 5 level they're always at. I don't think a lot of that is on him just because of what the defense needed from him in the totality of it. But, again, the defense was number 9 instead of number 5, and there are reasons for that. We got the dose of the double big lineup with Kel'el Ware, which is another thing people have been asking for years. I don't think you should take it for granted that it worked, particularly defensively, 108.5 defensive rating, which is really nice. The offensive rating, we'll see. That was a 113.1, below average-ish, and that's with the team shooting about 41% from 3, during those double big minutes. But look, we got 541 minutes of it, and it was generally pretty solid. And that's, again, really encouraging considering Ware's a rookie. The spacing, we didn't know how the spacing would work. The question always with double big lamps is how can you properly space? Ware hit enough threes, Bam hit enough threes to make it work. Now, it helps that Bam is spacing the court. We'll see how teams adjust going forward, whether they start respecting his shot more. That just creates better spacing opportunities. We'll see. We don't really know how that's going to go. Ware can naturally progress more in his second year. And we'll see. There's going to be a focus on the offense overall. There's going to be a focus on the offense with those double big lineups. How can they improve their efficiency? Going forward, there's reasons to be encouraged. And then with Bam, asked him, of course, about his takeaways from the season and what he learned, where his next 10% of growth comes from. And here's what he had to say during his interview.
Really understanding how hard it is to win a playoff game. I think for that team that just was just out there, I feel like it's a really valuable lesson, other than the scoreboard, but like to understand that how hard it is to win. I feel like a lot of us take it for granted when we're out there, kind of beating the teams you're supposed to beat, and then you get in the playoffs, and it's like it's an even field, and you got to really work through it. So I think just valuing winning.
All right, so Bam and Tyler are, of course, the main ones, but we're going to speed things up a bit because I don't want to keep you here for an hour. Davion Mitchell spoke, continues to say all the right things, how much he loved his time in Miami, how much he wants to be here. His defense was a major need for Miami, especially on the ball, fighting through screens, picking up guys full court. When Drew Smith went down, the Heat were lacking that a little bit, and Davion Mitchell came in, stepped into that role, really filled it well. His speed with the ball helped in transition. His speed with the ball helped getting into the paint in the half court. He's so strong. He can bully smaller defenders. He got to the rim relatively frequently. He won't always shoot, 44.7% from three, but that was really interesting that he had such a hot streak. That's really encouraging in general. Nobody's going to shoot like that forever. That's 44.7% is like, even that's a good season even for Steph Curry, basically. So it won't always be like that, but he did have some interesting thoughts related to his rhythm and his role and his minutes, and maybe as far as why his numbers shooting were so consistently good in a Heat uniform. Here's what he had to say.
I think that basketball is it comes with a rhythm. I think playing for Miami, I had a lot of rhythm. I had the ball in my hands, not just shooting the ball, but be able to make plays, to be able to turn people over, get defensive stop, and that comes with the rhythm. And people don't understand that. Like people that don't really know the game don't really understand it's a rhythm thing, and it's hard to just come off the bench. Like that's why I have so much praise for the guys who are just shooters, who like guys like Duncan Robinson who can just come off the bench and just knock down 8 threes, right? That's super hard to do. Like I promise you I couldn't do it, right? It's like just like I have no rhythm. There's no rhythm to the game, but for you to do that, it's like that's a special thing, right? You come off the bench or haven't shot the ball the whole game and you get a corner three and you knock it down, right? That's special. And I think the places that I've been, like my whole career, I've never been a person that could just sit in the corner and just make a three. I couldn't make a corner three, obviously, but I think just like throughout the whole game, not touching the ball, just running up the court and just making a corner three, I'm not that good at that. So I just think I had a rhythm, and when it comes to rhythm, I shoot better.
All right, so Kel'el Ware now. He didn't have a ton to say. Kel'el's generally been a man of few words, more or less, this season, even though he's had some really interesting moments of introspection. Still a rookie. That's generally what the case is with rookies, but a very, very encouraging year, of course. Probably going to be on the all-rookie team. You got to vote for Rookie of the Year. I know a lot of people said he should have played earlier in the season. He didn't start, he wasn't really in the rotation until around New Year's Day. He and Bam starting together mid to late January. I maintain the same refrain, which is that he probably played exactly as much as he should have. Those early months set him up for success, right? Because there's no guarantee that if you play earlier, you're going to have the same effectiveness that he did in January. And again, the Heat are trying to win and compete. So I think it all worked out just as it's supposed to. He got the full rookie experience in the postseason, going up against Cleveland's double big front line of Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. That is okay. That's very normal for a rookie. Look, even Jarrett Allen, a couple years ago, he got his earlier experiences in the postseason were not what he is today. There is a learning curve. It's very, very steep for rookies. It's steep for big men who can get every pick and roll. Every action is running through them in some form or fashion. I am not worried about what this postseason looked like for Kel'el. I think there were some moments that were good. It's just a very steep learning curve. That's fine. And then I asked him at exit interviews what he took from this season as far as his own development. And, he came in with a little bit of what you think he would say based on what we've seen from him. Here is his response to that question at exit interviews.
I would say definitely the strength part of it. That was really the main thing for me. That's going to be the main things I'm going to continue to work on. During the off season to get better at it, get stronger. So I would say that definitely that.
Jaime Jaquez Jr. was another interesting one from exit interviews. He called this a very humbling year. Struggled with his jumper as teams doubled down on how they were defending his drives, his spin moves, his pump fakes. He was clearly on the scouting report for teams. Everyone had a better idea of how to defend him. He was getting crowded. His drives weren't quite as effective. They were still pretty good, even with teams loading up on them. It's just it was harder to get to them consistently because teams were sagging off. They were leaving him open. And that's what I asked him because, look, I didn't need to ask him about what he wanted to work on as a development because he laid it out pretty clearly. The jumper, he wants to be a better defender, similar things that he said the year before. But I do think it's interesting how guys mentally react to teams leaving them open, to how defenses say, hey, we're daring you to shoot at times. And here's what he said about that.
Definitely, I think, depending on how teams play you, sometimes they want you to shoot a shot. They're trying to force you into it. As a competitor, you want to, and then, make or miss. Not always the best thing, but, that's what the work is all about. Just continuing to dive into it. So when that happens again, my confidence will just overtake everything.
And look, guys can have a down sophomore year. It is not an unheard of thing. They can come back better for it. There's really nothing else to be said about it other than it's a very important summer. There's clearly talent there. I don't think the talent has gone anywhere. It was just a very weird year for Jaime. Obviously, there's illnesses and injuries. Hopefully he has a better, more stability next year, stays in the lineup, he can earn more minutes. He knows what he needs to do to earn those. I don't think it'll be crazy to see Jaime back in the regular rotation playing important minutes next year. It's just a matter of getting there. Niko Jovic has been really hard on himself lately. Obviously, he dealt with a broken hand and was able to come back for the playoffs. He gave them what he could in the playoffs, even though those were big-time games to be your first minutes back after such a long layoff. And I asked him again, developmentally, what do you want to be better at going forward? And here is what he had to say.
I mean, I think I can improve in a lot of things, I think I improved a lot since I came here first, but just in every part, I think consistency is one thing that I really struggled with, even this year. So, first being consistent, knowing what my routine is, knowing what I have to do on the floor every night. And after that, I feel like I can do a lot of things on the floor. I never thought I was a player who always knew just to do one thing. I think I'm going to work on anything, on a lot of things, I'm just going to work on my game. I think it's what it's all about because I don't know what future's going to bring me, what situation I'm going to be in, what coach is going to want me to do. So, just work on whatever they need me to work on and work on everything that I think I need to work on.
So, it's about consistency for Niko. I will say this about him. Obviously, his size is great, ball handling. He can be a volume shooter, hard worker. Is a lot of everything you want in a young guy. I think his passing is really, really important for the Heat going forward. Part of what set them back a bit in the Cleveland series was Cleveland overloading the strong side of the floor, making the Heat beat them over the top, make the Heat find the weak side where they were leaving space open, but it was not one pass away. The space was always 2 passes away. That's what Cleveland was doing. Niko's height, his vision, his passing ability can be a guy that can really help Miami as a passer. They need that sort of passing to connect their offense together better. So, going forward, if the offense is going to be improved, I think specifically his passing will be a big part of that, even though he's obviously got other gifts that should help as well. He also noted he'll be playing in Eurobasket this summer, so we might be able to tune in and watch him a little bit playing there. And Pelle Larsson will also be playing in Eurobasket, playing for Sweden. Pelle Larsson did about as well as you can expect for a second-round pick. He played almost 800 minutes, started some games, shot over 50% from 2, really fit in with everything the Heat and Spo wanted from him as a 3-and-D wing with physicality that can eventually translate into postseason-style basketball. We came to the season after Summer League pointing at that guy, saying that's a guy that's going to get rotation minutes. He got some of them. He earned some of them. He did pretty well with those minutes. He had some really good impact games, great energy, great loose ball guy. He's just a gamer. I think Pelle Larsson is a winner. And the main thing I'll say about him, and as a high compliment, is that I think he can be a guy who can have a 10-year career. And as a second-round pick, that is no small thing. I think he will be around for quite a while, and he's going to be a very useful player, bit of a do-everything kind of a wing player going forward. So, we can start wrapping it up a little bit. Kyle Anderson and Alec Burks both spoke. Pure veterans all the way through, both speaking about how much they enjoyed their experience in Miami, how they enjoyed playing for Spo, especially how they respected Bam Adebayo's leadership and how Bam and Spo kind of held everything together throughout the tumult of the season. Haywood Highsmith is, as ever, a man of few words. He talked about being at peace with a role that has been fluctuating for years, but as ever, he is unbelievably reliable. You can rely on him. He's sort of a prototypical bench or sometimes starter, 3-and-D guy, great on wings, hits tough shots, can make a play off the dribble against a closeout when he needs to. Haywood's like always the guy I'm least concerned about on the entire team, just because I know he's going to show up, do his job, hit his threes, play defense. Super reliable guy, like Pelle, a guy who I think will be around. He'll have a long career just doing what he does and doing it well. And that's everyone who spoke. Some guys were able to decline. Exit interviews were voluntary, so that's why we're not talking about every player on the roster. But for now, I think we can all just go get some rest. Let's go touch some grass. Let's see some movies. If you haven't seen Sinners, go see Sinners. Havoc, the Tom Hardy action movie, is out on Netflix. That has some real great John Woo, Hong Kong action. Thunderbolts is supposed to be pretty good, even during a down period in the MCU. Expedition 33 looks like a fun game for some of you to sink your teeth into. Let's just all recharge our batteries. I think it's time for that. It's been a long, long season, and we all need it a little bit. But before we go, thank you all for joining us for this entire season of After the Buzzer. It's been a pleasure talking with you all. It's been a pleasure doing this. So thank you for joining us on this maiden voyage for After the Buzzer. We will be back, and we will talk to you soon. But until then, take some time, rest up, and there's always more basketball to come.